and welcome back to my channel. I am Christy Vann with VANNtastic Finances, and on this channel I teach velocity banking. His income is at $9,500 a month, and that's a pretty good income. Total debt is only $84,287, which means that he is not loaded in debt. He is just under the anxieties that we all are when we are living out of our checking account. He currently does not have a line of credit, but he does have the credit cards. So we have learned that if we do income transfers into the credit card, it wipes out the monthly payments. So we would start with the $9,000 credit card that has a $400 a month payment. So when he does the $6,000 transfer into this credit card, it's going to bring his balance down. Now his expenses are going to change because he'll no longer have this $400 payment that he currently has. So that became cash flow. So you're going to notice that only $1,300 a month comes out of this credit card for his expenses. That's his food, his gas, and maybe an electric bill, whatever he can charge on a credit card. But the rest will stay in cash because you can't pay other credit cards with a credit card, and you can't pay your car payments with a credit card unless you use a third-party source. So we are going to leave that cash in the bank, and we are just going to put $6,000 of his $9,500 into this credit card until we get it paid down, and then he can move on to the next debt. After his expenses and his interest comes out, his balance will be back up to $45.25. Do you see how quickly the credit card dropped? As soon as that reports to the credit bureaus, your scores are going to shoot up because they love it when you drop those credit cards down. Notice with the interest, it's at $225. I charged 30%. 30% because I don't know what the credit card is, but I know the high right now on credit cards is 29.99%. So I went ahead and did a 30% interest charge just to make sure that we have covered the interest on this credit card. Now the income in month 2 will only be $4,400 that we put into this credit card. Why? Because the credit card pays off. The $45.25 minus $4,500 would leave a $125 balance. We would add the interest that was charged on the $45.25 at 30%. He would have a balance of $238. We're not going to stress out over $238, so we're going to move on to the next credit card. So credit card number 2 has a balance of $6,000. We're going to show where the expenses are coming out of $1,300 a month. We're going to show the interest of $150, which is 30% of $6,000. The interest is charged on the average daily balance. So if it's $238 one day, but then it's $45.25 another day, the bank will average that out. Then they'll take the interest rate times the average daily balance. That will give you what you're going to pay for the entire year in interest charges. You would divide that by 12, and that gives you this monthly amount that I always have figured up, okay? So after adding the expenses and the interest, his balance would be up to $74.50. Month 3, his income would come in of $64.25. I know you're thinking, well, if $4,400 went in here, then where is the rest of his income? Well, I wanted to show that since he had the extra income here of $1,600, he could come over here and pay off this loan for $1,200. That would knock out the $100 payment he has. Then he could pay off his Capital One as well for $400, knocking out that $25 payment. And that way, those loans are done, over with, and we're moving on to the next debt now. So the next credit card is $6,000. He would have his expenses coming out through the month. His interest would come out through the month. It'd be at $74.50. Income 3 would go in at $64.25, leaving him a balance of $1,025. So where did we get that extra $425 that we're counting in as income? Well, remember now, when he starts doing the income transfer into card number 2, he's going to wipe out that $300 payment a month, right? So that becomes cash flow. Also, when he paid off these 2 loans, when he had the extra $1,600 in month 2, that knocked out those payments as well. So that totals $425. That is now cash flow. That is now going into credit card number 2. So his expenses and his interest come out in month 3, bringing his balance back up to $25.11. We will do a partial income deposit into credit card number 2, paying it off completely. Then we will move on to credit card number 3 that has a $4,500 balance. His expenses for month 4 would come out. His interest would come out, leaving his balance at $59.13. Then the partial income of number 4 that he had not used due to he could only pay off the $25.11 on credit card number 2, he now puts in credit card number 3 at $42.13, bringing his balance down to $1,700. His expenses in month 5 and interest would come out, leaving his balance at $31.50. He would take a partial income transfer in month 5, wipe that card out as well. So he's already wiped out 3 credit cards in 5 months. He would then take the remaining income that he had left over from this payoff of card number 3, and he would deposit it into the $61.87 balance of One Main. The $35.75 partial income that's still in month 5 would bring his balance down to $26.12. Then in month 6, his partial income would come in at $26.12, taking that to a 0 balance. At this point, when he is in month 6, he could easily go get that PLOC he needs, any kind of line of credit to continue on so that we can continue through his debt, wiping it out. When he gets the line of credit, and let's say it's for $15,000, because that's so easy to pick up at a credit union, he would come in and pay off car number 1 of $10,000. Then the rest of his income from 6 and then 7 as well would come in and pay off that car. So by month 7, he has paid off the first car as well. So starting in month 8, he would take $10,000 and put on car number 2, which remember, it's at a $47,000 balance, right? Let's also remember it's not going to be at a $47,000 balance because he's been making $903 payments for the last 8 months, right? So this balance is going to be lower, but to leave room for error, I am not including the payments that have been paid. So car number 2, we would take the $10,000, put on the balance of the loan, bring in income month 8 at $72.30. Now remember, the income has increased because the cash flow has increased, right? So that's going into the lines of credit now. So when this car payment was $505, that has now become cash flow that he's going to work to pay off car number 2 with. When he makes the income transfer on month 8 of $72.30, he brings the balance of $10,000 down to $27.70. He would pay the interest out of that I have figured at 30% still, so $250 in interest and $1,300 in monthly expenses, bringing the balance back up to $43.20. He would then make another $10,000 deposit on the balance of $37,000 now. That means that he would owe $27,000 on this car. When he adds the $10,000 in, he'll bring the balance of the line of credit up to $14,320. His income in month 9 of $72.30 would go in. His expenses and interest would come back out through the month. His balance would be $13,248. Month 10, he would do the same thing. Income in, expenses and interest out, bringing his balance to $76.50. In month 11, his income transfer would go in at $72.30, bringing his balance down to $420. And you know what that means? Yep, we're going to make another $10,000 deposit on car number 2. That will then bring his balance back up to $11,912. His income deposit would go in of $72.30 in month 12, bringing his balance down to $46.82. The expenses and the interest would come back out through the month, bringing his balance back up to $62.82. In month 13, he would have his expenses and his interest coming out, bringing his balance back up to $77.40. In month 13, the income transfer at $72.30 would go in, bringing his balance down to $510. Yes, this means that we're going to be making another deposit into that car loan of $13,000 this time. So that brings the balance to $13,510. Income in month 4 will go in at $72.30, bringing that balance down to $72.80. Do you see how this works? You bring the balance up, but your income brings it way down. The interest is only charged on average daily balance, so that's why your interest charges are nowhere near what they would be if you were using an amortized loan. And that's why the lines of credit pay off so much quicker. So after the expenses and interest of month 14, his balance would be at $79.18. Month 15, his income transfer would go in of $72.30, bringing his balance to $688. At this point, I call car number 2 paid off because at 15 months in, he has been making $900 payments. We know just by doing a little bit of math that this car is going to be paid off and he will be done with his debts, meaning that all of his debts will be paid off in 15 months. And he didn't go out and get another job. He didn't start getting frugal. He didn't even start eating beans and rice. He kept his expenses the same, according to what he gave me. We didn't get frugal. We just started putting his money in places that serve him instead of places that serve the bank. I know this was a very quick run through, and I know it was confusing with the way we use partial incomes from month to month because he makes so much money that it was easy payoffs on these bills, and he has felt like he was choking, and the whole time he had control. He just didn't realize it. You have control as well. You can decide what it is that you're going to do with your financial future. You just have to learn where to put your money. Change your mind. Let the paradigm shift. You too will see that you will control your debt and it no longer controls you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I appreciate you all for watching, and I hope you have a terrific week.